Scavengers Reign is one of those rare pieces of media that actually changed the way I think. Joe Bennett and Charles Hwetner created an original animated short film titled Scavengers back in 2016 for Adult Swim, and 7 years later they managed to release a full-length series with a fully realized world and a cast of amazing characters. But it's the feeling of the show that really got me. The atmosphere, the music, everything is so well done. Easily the best and most original animated series in years. The amount of thought and care put into the world of the series alone is worth multiple watches. I've never seen anything like it before, and I doubt I ever will again. I went into Scavengers Reign blind. I knew nothing about the plot, I hadn't even seen the trailer, and I didn't know what to expect. It was just absolutely phenomenal from start to finish. It's easily one of the best adult animated series that I've ever seen. It might even be the best science fiction series that I've ever seen. This isn't a normal video essay in the sense that I'm trying to persuade you about some argument. I just want to talk about this show because Scavengers Reign changed something in me, and I am still figuring it out. So break out the yellow mold as we explore the interconnected facets of Scavengers Reign. I love science fiction. Ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by space, robots, biology. I'm one of those science weirdos that earnestly hopes that there is life within our solar system, possibly hidden in the vast oceans under the ice of Europa, or frozen at the poles of Mars. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, those people are f***ing crazy. But we can't be the only living things out there. The idea of a vast universe with trillions of planets out there potentially hosting millions of planets worth of life, it boggles the mind. Movies, video games, and television series about discoveries made amongst the stars, whether they be beautiful or terrifying, have always piqued my interest. Mainstream sci-fi like Alien, Halo, The Thing, and Europa Report gave me a love for aliens and horror, while Terminator, Westworld, and Ghost in the Shell taught me to ask philosophical questions about our perception of consciousness and the danger of AI. Meanwhile, BioShock, Blade Runner, or Dune made me think about the power of humanity, the strength of the human mind, and the great good and the great evil that we are capable of enacting on each other. I bring all of this up because Scavengers Reign tackles all of these ideas in some form or another. Scavengers Reign is an adult animated series. Now, what do I mean by adult? There's a common misconception that adult just refers to media that contains violence, nudity, and cursing, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but adult animation is more than that. It's mature storytelling. Adult stories feature conflicts that are relevant to people who are participating in society as adults. Moral dilemmas, addiction, and situations that affect social status and familial responsibility. This does include topics like violence, sex, and cursing, but it's not an understatement to say that American society is obsessed with reducing these topics to jokes and commodifying them, robbing them of their impact by downplaying their significance to the individual and society at large. Mature stories are also not necessarily inaccessible to children. Lots of young kids, myself and many people of our generation included, got a ton out of watching more adult things, which offer people perspectives that they haven't yet lived long enough to acquire. But the adult is going to engage with the issues relevant to their stage of life a little differently. Maturity doesn't so much come from the content of the story, but from the writer themselves. The writer's voice, how they view the world, their attitude, it affects everything from the way the story feels to the depth of the characters. A story feels mature when it's aware of the impact that it has on the audience, and when you come away from it having actually learned and felt something deep and profound.
I'm marooned on planet Vesta, seeking rescue. Is anybody out there?
Scavengers Reign takes place on the planet Vesta, an alien world out in the far reaches of space where the crew of the Demeter wind up stranded and forced to survive. The planet's surface is strange. The flora and fauna interact with each other in such fascinating and terrifying ways. Massive organic structures that look like the hollow bones of birds serve as homes to all manner of creatures. Animals move in herds so large that they cause earthquakes. Mushrooms grow so large that you might mistake them for trees. It feels so much like Earth while simultaneously being so unrecognizably alien. Because the setting of Scavengers Reign is a primary character, the creative team took great efforts to make sure that the world feels natural, logical, and cohesive despite its alien nature. The planet's name, Vesta, refers to the Roman goddess Vesta, based on an ancient Greek goddess, Hestia, the god of hearth and home. Meanwhile, the ship they arrive on is called the Demeter. Now, when I first watched the show, I assumed that this was a reference to Bram Stoker's Dracula, as the ship that brings Dracula to England bears the same name. This, however, is just a coincidence. The real meaning of the ship refers to another ancient Greek goddess, Demeter, the god of harvest and agriculture. Now, you don't need to be a genius to see that the symbolism practically writes itself. The crew arrived on the Demeter, a ship to cultivate and harvest life on the planet Vesta, their new home. They were never getting off the planet. Vesta is their new home. Some people have credited video games like Rainworld or Subnautica for having the most diverse and realized ecosystems in science fiction, and to their credit, they're both brilliant. But no, Scavengers Reign is miles beyond anything I've ever seen. There is something to be said about science fiction with diverse wildlife and contrasting biomes. Seeing the natural world interacting with all of the creatures within it is something that we distinctly keep seeing less and less of in our modern world as we struggle with climate change, urbanization, and the spiraling effects of industrialization. Because of this, there is something so beautiful about seeing an ecosystem living in perfect harmony with itself, its flora and fauna coexisting and forming symbiotic relationships to further their survival. Just because the world is beautiful, however, doesn't mean that this world is without its predators or its parasites. Numerous creatures and environments pose dangerous threats to the protagonists over the course of their journey. Crustaceans reminiscent of sand fleas eat the eggs of docile sea giants, while fuzzy insectoids use spores to paralyze their prey before sucking their husks dry. The flora and fauna use different tactics to stun, immobilize, or even assimilate their prey. Nature, after all, is violent, and sometimes the only way for our protagonists to survive is to be violent themselves. The show is very clear about the cycle of life and death and how everything in the environment contributes to everything else around it, good or bad. My favorite example of this is this weird tree that pricks creatures that pass beneath its branches, using their DNA to grow biological clones of these animals. Those clones then go off and join the herd before erupting in a cascade of corrosive matter, killing everything around them. The remains of the dead become fertilizer for a new grove of trees to take root. The whole organism is like a weed spreading across the land on the backs of animals. Even when the planet is scary, it's still amazing. The biodiversity shown in Scavengers Reign is truly mesmerizing. Eusociality, camouflage, all sorts of wild and weird adaptations bring the planet to life. But what happens when humans are introduced to this alien environment? The real impact of the show comes from how the main cast of survivors interact with the landscape and the creatures on their new planet.
What have you been doing? Adapting.
One of the show's main themes is connection, how connection to your environment and each other is crucial to survival, how adapting to the world around you and building connection to the people that are with you is what will keep you alive during times of struggle.
I can't do this on my own.
Ursula seems to fundamentally embody this idea. She's an ecologist and a botanist, she's resourceful and observant and learns from the natural world around her. She's able to adapt to the environment the easiest, I think in part because she didn't really have any strong connections before arriving on Vesta. What little we do know is that she was once a mother and had a family, but we never meet any of these characters, even in flashbacks. She doesn't even really talk about them. We don't get much backstory for Ursula, unlike Sam, Ozzy, or Cayman, and I think that's intentional. Her family probably died or left her, and she was looking for a fresh start aboard the Demeter. While on Vesta, Ursula's observant nature allows her to solve a lot of the problems that she and Sam encounter. She witnesses events that are so small, yet mean so much. The beautiful birth of a tiny creature, its entire lifespan, and its death, all in the span of 2 minutes. Something rarely witnessed by any living being on this planet.
That was incredible. I can't believe what I just saw.
It evokes a very Tears in Rain sort of feeling.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Ursula is able to become so interconnected to her new environment because she had no strong attachment to her old one. All that matters are the connections she's made here, now.
I miss my friends. I just miss my normal life.
Sam is incredibly smart. He's a pilot and engineer and manages to build entire devices using flora and fauna found on this alien world. He and Ursula make an incredible team and their survival is essentially guaranteed. Only Sam hates this place. He doesn't stop to admire the scenery. He wants to get his old life back. He wants off the planet. Sam doesn't adapt to this environment. Sam reminisces about his past constantly, talking to Ursula about his brother, his friends, his old life, unable to let go of them. While Ursula marvels at the world she's seeing and finds it fascinating, Sam is upset and terrified by it. He fights it harder than anyone else in the show because he feels like they don't belong here. And the more he fights, the more the environment tries to keep him. While telling the haunting story of an old colleague, Sam tells Ursula,
I just couldn't imagine giving up that kind of control over my own life, you know?
And in an ironic turn of events, a parasite latches itself onto his heart and hijacks his mind. He literally loses control over his own life. But Sam never really had control to begin with. He believes that he has a sense of control, and this gives him comfort, but in reality, Sam is not in control of anything. He was the Demeter's captain, and he lost control of the ship. His makeshift radio fails because of natural error. When making their way through the wall, Ursula doesn't listen to him. These are all things beyond his control. The very thing he's terrified of is already his reality. He just doesn't know it until it's too late. Sam refuses to let the parasite change him. So with his final act, he makes sure that he dies while he's still himself, and goes out on his own terms.
Well, your memory isn't completely shot. But I can't have any of this bizarre behavior, Levi, not out here.
Ozzy is in charge of cargo on the Demeter, and when she lands on the planet, she comes equipped with lots of useful gear. She sets up a camp, sets up crops, marks off territory, but unlike Ursula, who embraces this land, Ozzy is only surviving in it. She has no intention of staying here, only securing her own survival long enough to be rescued and get off the planet. She doesn't live in harmony with her environment. She actively fights it with her tools, and the environment fights back, slowly depriving her of her tools over the course of the story. Ozzy starts off rejecting this planet like Sam does. She struggles to tame it, to get the environment to work for her. Ozzy has a need for control, for things to make sense. Levi gets her to start thinking differently.
What are you doing?
Lighten your grip. Follow the sway of the herd.
By letting go of her tools, she learns to listen to the environment rather than fight against it. Ozzy starts to understand the way that this strange new world works. Through her interactions with Levi, she starts to see the beauty and the wonder that this planet holds.
This place, it's like a puzzle. Nothing really makes sense in the way we know it. I guess I might have misjudged a few things.
She starts to see this world not as her adversary, but as a delicate ecosystem that she's become a part of, that she can now use in an integrated way to her advantage. The tools of the past no longer serve Ozzy. She has learned how to create her own from her new environment. Ozzy begins the story as a very closed-off, solitary person. She's a hard person to like and talk to, but it's through the connections she makes, the people that she opens herself up to, that Ozzy is able to adapt and thrive. Out of all the characters, she best represents the theme of adapt or die.
Fuck you, Sam!
Cayman is a corporate middle manager, which represents a tiny disposable link in a vast corporate chain, and paradoxically, he is the most disconnected person in the cast. Cayman starts off stranded and driven mad by solitude and hunger. His isolation is an extension of his social identity. He's eventually saved by this alien frog creature that uses telekinesis and telepathy to get other creatures to bring it food. The frog, who we come to know as Hollow, keeps Cayman fed on this black goo while controlling him telepathically by taking on the guise of his ex-wife, Fiona. Through these hallucinations, we learn what kind of a person Cayman was before. He's toxic, arrogant, and self-destructive. He's got an inferiority complex. He drove his wife away and doesn't have any friends.
I outrank you, Sam, and everyone else on this bridge. You don't need to get anyone in here, because I'm in charge, goddammit!
Cayman's job represents what little worth he sees in himself. Everything with him is transactional and selfish. He deludes himself into thinking that if he could succeed at this shitty little job, that it would prove his worth to Fiona and win her back. We also learn that he's single-handedly responsible for everything that happened to the Demeter. By disobeying safety regulations, he ripped the Demeter apart, forcing the crew to abandon ship. He valued his job over the lives of the entire crew and doomed them all to try and save his doomed marriage. Honestly, the show should have been called Cayman. It's Cayman's rage that brought him to kill his first creature and bring it to Hollow. He brings this herbivore meat, even feeding it one of its own kind. Because of this, Hollow grows to enormous size and ridiculous strength. Hollow comes to reflect the cannibalistic nature inside Cayman. Self-delusion is the core of Cayman's character, and it's reflected in Hollow. He eventually gives himself over to the fantasy, the delusion, and the safety that Hollow provides him. Safety from the truth. Scavengers Reign has a very harsh way of confronting Cayman. As Fiona puts it,
Your brain is poison. You've always known that. Remember?
I made a mistake.
This is who you are, Cayman. And it's time for you to come out of hiding and accept that.
he finally comes to the realization that he's a terrible human being, and he wants out of the fantasy that Hollow provided him. He now spends his time doing anything useful, because in his previous job he was the most useless person on the ship. Helping Ursula in the garden is quite literally the least he can do. Cayman gets the opportunity to grow after facing his villain, the truth of who he is. Once he realizes that he is a monster, only then is he capable of changing to become helpful to society. It's a very kind thing that the world does for Cayman, giving him a second chance.
The world shares things with me that I couldn't possibly experience by myself. Things that are far beyond what's right in front of me.
Levi is a fascinating character. Levi is a worker robot, capable of helping the crew with any given task. When they first arrive on Vesta, Levi comes into contact with a yellow mold that seems to have a similar composition to their circuitry, and it starts to affect Levi's behavior. Levi starts acting strange, doing things just to see what happens, interacting with their environment in ways that a robot really shouldn't be able to do. Levi builds things without rhyme or reason.
Did you do this?
Yes.
For what purpose?
I just thought it looked nice.
Ozzy struggles to understand Levi's new and strange behaviors. That yellow mold seems to be having an effect on Levi's programming. At first, Ozzy believes Levi to be malfunctioning, maybe even dangerous. But much to her surprise, Levi starts developing feelings. Levi has daydreams, and they can even feel tactile sensations on their metal shell, as well as pain.
What is going on?
Levi has responses to external inputs, while Ozzy assumes at first that Levi's actions are internally driven, what we would perceive as our senses. Levi describes it as the world sharing things with them that are far beyond what's right in front of them. The way Levi describes their actions as...
They're just things I've been compelled to do. I can't explain why.
Is exactly the same type of feeling that leads humans to explore, experiment, and express ourselves. What a profound imagining of emergence of consciousness, like a child exploring the world for the first time. Levi is curious, creative, and they look at the world around them in awe and want to be a part of it. Levi is a great example of what a newly conscious robot discovering itself may look like. Some of the most beautiful and profound moments of this show are when Levi is just observing the world around themselves, slowly becoming a part of the environment. Levi becomes like an embodiment of the planet's voice. They grow from a tool into a living being, giving Vesta a voice that humans can understand.
You're free. That fear you were carrying with you is gone now. You left it at the bottom of this mountain.
Chris is one of my favorite characters in this show because she is the antithesis of everything that we see on the planet, and she's a perfect foil to Ozzy. She arrives on Vesta with her crewmates, Terrence and Barry, with the intention of stealing everything that they can for themselves. Very clearly, Chris is established as their leader and treats her crew like some kind of meritocracy, where if you're contributing, you're useful, but this is a lie. Chris uses this mentality to keep her followers in line and keep order.
Past fears and attachments only get in the way. Think about what you want to bring with you going forward.
Chris says this as if she's giving a wise life lesson, when in reality she's telling on herself. Chris is completely narcissistic and focused on controlling others. using them like tools. In reality, Chris is a cult leader. She's forceful, she makes up weird group rituals, she reinforces her own dogma with threats of violence and death. Barry is the youngest of her group, maybe 18 or 19 at the oldest, and is clearly somewhere on the spectrum. He laser focuses on tasks, doesn't understand social etiquette, it gets hung up on little details, that sort of thing. Terrence sort of fills a fatherly role for Barry, keeping an eye on him and teaching him skills, but Chris frowns upon Terrence looking out for him this way, believing that he's coddling him. Terrence is kind-hearted and wise, but he always defers to Chris's leadership. She's always right, after all. Chris gets Terrence killed and then weaponizes Barry's guilt to build his loyalty to her. After Terrence is gone, she becomes the main parental figure for Barry to latch onto, reaffirming her doctrine, calling him an asset, and other weird shit.
We did this together. For once, you should be proud. I'm letting you be proud.
I'm proud.
Needless to say, she's not getting a Mother of the Year award. Chris is a foil to Ozzy because she has a fixation on acquiring tools to meet her ends, even referring to her crew as assets.
You're gonna be an asset soon enough.
Soon enough, I'm gonna be an asset.
As an aside, casually calling people assets highlights how fucking dehumanizing it is to refer to people like that in real life. Chris tries to convert Ozzy to their group, but Ozzy has grown past Chris's ideology and recognizes a dark mirror of herself in Chris, which makes her resistant to her influence. When Ozzy starts looking out for Barry, Chris even starts viewing Ozzy as a threat. She's threatening her authority, her control over the group. Control and detachment are the opposite of what's needed to survive on Vesta.
Are we gonna die out here?
The white flower is an interesting narrative tool as well as a cool motif used during the story of Scavengers Reign. Throughout the show, this flower is seen blooming out of and around the corpses of recently deceased plants and creatures. Later in the season, it's revealed to be the source of that yellow mold that attached itself to Levi and jump-started their sentience. That means that all across the surface of this planet, wherever it is blooming, that yellow interconnective mold is growing and spreading like a network of mycelium. On Earth, mycelium networks are the largest living organisms on the planet, similar to human brains, in that they send electrical signals all throughout their systems to communicate and convey information or warn about incoming danger. Like fungus or bacteria, the flower is, in essence, the basis for all life on this planet. Once Levi becomes entwined to the planet's ecosystem, they even start growing and harvesting these flowers. And like how Levi utilized the flower to adapt to the planet's environment, the flower adopts traits of Levi, who becomes the progenitor of a new species of Vestan life. Look at all those little Levis. Everything alive or dead is connected on this planet. It becomes one of the most poignant visual motifs over the course of the series, and it has this beautiful, profound symbolism. Scavengers Reign handles with great sensitivity and intention mature themes like life, death, love, responsibility, and interconnectivity. I also love that the show handles the more mundane topics like violence, sex, and cursing with as much care and intention as it does its heavier themes. It's a 1 in a million kind of show that is able to hook you from the jump, and it sticks with you for days or weeks or months after it's finished. In the modern age, we are extremely disconnected from nature and the world around us. I myself am guilty of this, being cooped up inside for days at a time, glued to my computer screen, isolated from the other people in my life. Through the suburban sprawl and concrete jungles we call home, it can be difficult to find and maintain those connections. Our urban environments permeate a strange solitude despite people living so close together. It's so easy to disappear and hide from the outside world. But humans are social creatures by nature. We need movement, connection, and friendship. Scavengers Reign is a masterpiece of adult animation and science fiction. It made me want to go out more into the world, spend time outside in my environment, even if it's an urban one. And there are ways that you can connect to an urban environment. Just ride the train or the bus to a part of the city you don't usually go to. Or go geocaching. I forgot how much I enjoyed geocaching. It made me want to spend more time with my friends and my family to rebuild those connections in my own world. Even if it's only through small ways, connection with our world is how we will continue to survive. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to me gush about Scavengers Reign, and if you haven't seen it yet, please, please, please give it a watch. Also, we have a Patreon now. Toss us a few bucks if you can. All the money goes towards helping us get higher quality videos out quicker. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please hit the notification bell to make sure that you see all our future videos, and leave a comment and let us know your thoughts on Scavengers Reign. I promise I read them all. This is the Hedgehog from Idle Scree, signing off.